Welcome to this week's edition of Tiger Sports Nation on D3 TV. I'm Robert Sherman.
And I'm Michael Jennings. Our top story for this week is DePaul football's last-second win over Denison on the road. With 3 seconds remaining in the game, Marco Adams drilled a 42-yard field goal to give the Tigers a 31-29 victory.
Marco Adams finished the day going 3 for 4 on field goals, including a 49-yarder, which was his personal best for his entire career. This performance by Adams was far and away his best in the midst of a season which, frankly, has not been as strong as he may have liked. Adams has only made 7 of 16 field goals so far this season.
Matt Hunt had another solid performance this week, throwing his 20th and 21st touchdown passes of the year. He had 308 yards through the air and completed 24 of his 34 pass attempts. Hunt also led the team in rushing with 75 yards on the ground with 17 carries.
Nobody else could really establish the run for DePaul, as Jack Gruber only accumulated 44 yards on 16 attempts. He was also able to score the game's first touchdown. Andy Hunt had another outstanding effort catching the ball with 10 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown.
Connor Jeffers and Jake Hagan combined for 9 catches and 96 yards of receiving as well. The Tigers are now 7-1 this season with the victory and will host Oberlin College this Saturday at 1 p.m.
We'll actually have the opportunity to sit down with Marco Adams a little bit later in the show. But moving on now to soccer, the DePaul men's team fell on the road at Ohio Wesleyan last night by a score of 2-0 to end their regular season campaign. It was the NCAC semifinals, and the Tigers were not quite able to get past the number 2 seed battling Bishops.
Evan Lee scored the first goal for Ohio Wesleyan at the 31-minute mark. Brian Schaefer then put in the insurance goal in the 82nd minute to put the game on ice.
The battling Bishops outshot the Tigers 25-7 and led in shots on goal 8-2. Chris Yount made 6 saves for the Tigers in a losing effort.
The defeat drops DePaul soccer to 11-3-4 on the season. Their season has hope of continuing, however, this upcoming Monday at 1:30 p.m. when the NCAA tournament selections and at-large bids are announced.
And I'm sure everybody on campus has their fingers crossed for that one to see if the Tigers will get an at-large bid into the tournament. Finally, while the men saw a tough road defeat last night, the women's team had a remarkable home finish in the second extra time period against Wittenberg. Wittenberg came to town and played tough with DePaul the entire way, and was all tied at 1-1 after regulation, and still tied at the same score at the end of the first overtime. The rules for the game were golden goal, so whoever scored would win. And Catherine Rourke took a cross from Bridget Benza, which ricocheted off the post and into the net to give the Tigers the victory.
In the 32nd minute, an own goal by Wittenberg put the Tigers on the board first and knotted things up. Kate Burns for Wittenberg scored earlier in the match, and the game would remain tied until the final moments.
Riley Riordan made 3 saves for the Tigers, who will now play for an NCAC title this Saturday at home against the Denison Big Red. Denison is the only team to defeat DePaul in conference play during the regular season. That game will begin at 2:00 p.m. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Julia Briggs and I will take the helm. This is Tiger Sports Nation right here on D3 TV.
Cheers.
That's perfect.
Get it.
This looks so janky. The camera.
Hello, Tiger Sports Nation fans, and welcome to our second segment of tonight's show featuring our amazing women's volleyball and field hockey teams. I'm Julia Briggs, and this is my partner, Robert Sherman.
To start, the DePaul volleyball team needs a good showing in this weekend's NCAC tournament to advance to the NCAA tournament. But before we will look ahead, the Tigers have to handle the number 6 seed Kenyon in the first round at 4 p.m. on Friday.
Yes, they do. When Kenyon and DePaul met in the regular season, the Tigers won 3-1. So hopefully the outcome is looking good for them in the future. If the Tigers do in fact succeed, they'll need top performance from their seniors, such as Keely McGrath, who broke the all-time school record in digs earlier this year and leads the team with 566 digs. Senior setter Faith Rouse also leads assists with 1,000 plays, and Lauren Filatico leads the team with 321 kills.
In addition, the NCAC Senior Recognition Ceremony and announcement of the 2015 All-NCAC teams will take place immediately following the semifinal matches, and all the tournament matches will be played at Wittenberg.
That's right. Up next, we've got a lot to talk about with our field hockey Tigers after their glorious win against Denison 2-1 on Wednesday's NCAC tournament semifinal game.
Now, while both teams traded wins during the regular season, it was DePaul on Wednesday who punched their ticket to the NCAC championship game. The teams were held scoreless for almost a half hour until freshman Sarah Pereira scored her second goal of the season off a deflection from a long shot off Paige Berliner.
Yes, and then almost 7 minutes later, Berliner found Riley Bruce in front of the net to make it a 2-0 game. This was Riley's 15th goal of the season, and from that, DePaul held the 2-point lead for the next 15 minutes until Denison scored, trying to gather some dignity before the end.
Oh, well, Denison, maybe next time. Doesn't your brother go there?
Yeah, he's cool.
Well, despite DePaul's awesome win, Denison outshot DePaul 11-10 and won the penalty corner advantage 10-4. Next up for the Tigers, DePaul will travel to Kenyon for the championship game on Saturday. Good luck, pals. Tiger Sports Nation wishes you the best.
That we do, Sherman. Stay tuned, friends. We have an interview with Marco Adams up next.
Welcome back to Tiger Sports Nation right here on D3 TV. I'm Robert Sherman. Now, this past Saturday, as we talked about before, the DePaul football team ended up heading to Granville, Ohio to take on the Denison Big Red, and what ended up being one of the most thrilling matches of the entire year. It was a seesaw battle going back and forth between the Big Red and the Tigers, and it was a close affair the entire length of the contest. In the last 2 minutes, Denison kicked a field goal in order to take a 29-28 point lead. But then the DePaul offense, led by Matt Hunt, was able to drive down the field all the way to about the 25-yard line. The biggest play on that drive was when Matt Hunt found his little brother, Andy Hunt, in order to give Marco Adams the opportunity to attempt a 42-yard game-winning field goal with just 3 seconds left in the game. He was able to knock through that field goal, his third of the day, and the Tigers were propelled to a 7-1 record on the year and a 31-29 victory on that given Saturday on that Halloween afternoon. Now, I had the opportunity to sit down with Marco Adams to talk about what happened with that kick, what's been going on with his kicking game as of late that has allowed him to improve from that perspective. And here's what Marco Adams had to say.
This is Robert Sherman here with D3 TV and WGRE. I'm sitting down with Marco Adams, place kicker for the DePaul Tigers. Marco, thank you so much for joining me. So let's get right into it. You had a really big game this past Saturday. For those of you who didn't know, the DePaul Tigers went to Denison and defeated the Big Red by a final score of 31-29. But it was Marco Adams who delivered a game-winning field goal with 2.5 seconds remaining in order to propel the Tigers to victory. Marco, what was going through your mind right before you made that kick?
It was actually funny. I don't know really. Nothing in particular. I went out there and I was telling myself that we're gonna go win this game right here. All the guys around me were saying the same thing. They were confident. I was confident. Denison actually tried to ice me, and I just thought it was so weird that they didn't really do it the way that I guess you go about a normal icing the kicker. So it didn't really mess with my head either. So yeah, I was out there. I was ready to win the game, and we were all ready to win the game.
And all in all, not just that last moment, but it was a big game for you in general. You went 3 for 4 on the day, including drilling a 49-yard field goal, which is one of the top 10 or 15 kicks in DePaul history. I mean, what was working well in that game, and what's been working well as of late?
Yeah, we did have a big day. A lot of credit to the line, Buckley, Joe Buckley, my long snapper, Ian Good, my holder. Really, without them, I can't do it. I'm just the byproduct of the whole thing. I get to be the one that's recognized, but I can't do it without them. And we just had things working. We had good times, we had good kicks, and 3 of them found their way home. So.
And then in general this year, it's been a little bit different than what you had last year. A season ago when you were a sophomore, you finished the year 12 out of 15. You ended up accumulating 76 points, which was top 10 for any player in DePaul history for total points scored in a season. But then this year it's been a little bit of a slower start, just a little bit under 50% with a lot of kicks this year. But at the same time, there have been a lot of things that haven't been your fault, such as a lot of kicks being blocked. And so I guess what's made this year and last year so different?
It's hard to tell. Each season progresses on its own. And, a lot of it, if not all of it, falls on me as the kicker. So it's just been a lot of watching tape, getting back in there. We've been working hard at practice, especially this past week with timing and things. So I've been going a little slow to the ball, allowing the guys to come off the edge. Sometimes I was hitting balls a little low, allowing the interior lineman to get a hand up, get some pieces of the ball. So, it has been a different year than last year in terms of success, but you just got to keep moving on. As Coach Lynch likes to say, Fido, forget it, drive on. So that's what I've been making sure to do, keep a level head if things don't go my way, and make sure that I'm ready when I'm called on.
There was, before the game Saturday, I saw there was a drill that you and Coach Lynch were working on where he was holding a stopwatch off and yelling in your ear as you were trying to make kicks during practice. Can you take us through what exactly you guys were trying to accomplish with that?
Yeah, so that's actually what we were working on all week. Was he was standing behind me with that stopwatch, and we were working for like a 1.05 to say a 1.19, anywhere in that range is what can pretty much ensure that a kick will not get blocked coming from guys coming from off the edge. So we worked hard. We really stressed that and focused that this week, that I was quick to the ball. Ian got it down, which he always does a great job of, and I just get it up and try to get it through. So during pregame, he was just letting me know what my times were, making sure I was staying on track, and making sure we were going to be good to go for the game.
The position of kicker is such a unique one compared to most out on the field because you're not out there for the far majority of plays. You only come out maybe 5 or 6 times, and when you come out with extra points and after touchdowns and field goals in general, you don't get to see the field too often. So you're coming in cold a lot. Does that make it very difficult to do your job?
Actually, I've kind of worked out a system for myself. So whenever the offense has the ball, I'm back on the sideline, kicking in my net, staying warm in case the offense, which they've done a great job of this year, just get the ball in the end zone and allowing me to kick extra points. sometimes get stopped in the red zone, but allowing me to kick field goals. So I make sure to stay warm and continue kicking while they have the ball, just to make sure I'm ready to go at all times because, I'm not on the field that much.
And then now, moving back to a team perspective, the team's 7-1 after your game-winning kick this past Saturday. 2 more games left to go in the regular season. How's the team feeling?
The team's feeling very confident. There's a big game coming up this weekend, and we have to make sure that we don't look past Oberlin. They've turned their season around this year from what they had last year. So we need to be ready to go get a win this weekend, and we can't be looking forward to what's in the future.
Oberlin and DePaul will be kicking off at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Marco Adams, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.
Back to the studio.
Well, that's what Marco Adams had to say to me a little bit earlier today, talking about that big kick that he had and everything that was going on in that Denison game. Really a thriller of a contest, and it's been a bit of a different story this year with the DePaul Tigers, that they've been in a few more close games, with the way that their game against Wittenberg was very close, coming right down to the wire, a 35-30 victory. And now you have a game-winning field goal a week ago. This DePaul Tigers team is really starting to play well against some of the best teams in the world of collegiate football at the Division III level. They're going to square off again against Oberlin College this Saturday at 1 p.m., a game where the DePaul Tigers really smashed Oberlin a season ago. But this Oberlin team has been much improved from a season ago. But there is one big disparity, and it actually segues in very nicely with the interview that we had. Marco Adams has been such a dynamic kicker these past 2 years, even nailing a 49-yarder last week. Oberlin, on the other hand, has only attempted 5 extra points this year, has only made 1 of them, and does not have a consistent place kicker. So right there may be a very significant advantage going the way of the DePaul Tigers. We'll have to find out and see exactly what happens this Saturday. That's going to do it from this segment. Next coming up is You Buggin', right here on D3 TV.
Who we gonna be? Wabash! Who we gonna be? Wabash! Who we gonna be? Wabash! Who we gonna be?
Wabash, right? Whoop their asses! Go Tigers! Woo!
DePaul believes in you.
Go DePaul! Kill Wabash!
Beat Wabash! Go Tigers! Bring home the bell!
Beat up Wabash.
DePaul believes in you! Go Tigers! Beat Wabash!
Let's go, DePaul.
Go Tigers, bring home the bell.
Woo! Go Tigers! Woo! The bell!
This weekend, show Wabash what's up. Show them that we're not a bunch of cake eaters from the South. Burst off the line like a shotgun. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers!
Beat Wabash. DePaul believes in you.
Go DePaul. Beat Wabash. Woo!
Beat Wabash, take them down.
Let's go, Tigers. Let's go. Let's get that W. Beat Wabash. Let's go.
Go DePaul!
Played football 1 year. I don't know how much fun it is. Never played in a big rivalry game though, so I assume that's even more fun. But it'd be a lot more fun if you won than if you lost. So win.
Well, welcome back to Tiger Sports Nation. I'm Tom Crispin, and it's your favorite part of the segment, You Buggin'. Well, to start things off first, here on TSN, I'm going to be talking about a sport that, to my knowledge, has never been mentioned on the show, and that is NASCAR. Yep, that's right, NASCAR. Last weekend at Martinsville Speedway, Joey Logano was leading the race with only 47 laps left, and out of nowhere, it appeared as though Matt Kenseth, who races for Joe Gibbs Racing, spun out Logano on purpose. Now, I know some of you NASCAR fans out there might say this is part of the racing sport, but I sure don't think it is. Let me remind you of the events that led up to this. 2 weeks earlier at Kansas, the two were battling for first place, but Kenseth spun out Logano with only 5 laps remaining. And put the blame on Logano. This was not the case for this past weekend. In fact, Kenseth was down 10 laps, count them, 10, when he spun out Logano. To me, this appears to be direct retaliation from 2 weeks ago, and NASCAR's governing body tends to agree with me because they ended up suspending Kenseth for 2 races. With this, Logano and Joe Gibbs Racing have sent in an appeal, and it got denied. They're planning on sending another one, but all I got to say to this is Matt Kenseth, Joe Gibbs Racing, you know what happened, you're bugging.
All right, this is probably the last time I'll be talking about baseball for probably the rest of the year. I know I've talked about baseball quite a bit on this show, but this is the last one, I promise. Kinda. Unless something crazy happens over the winter hot stove, which honestly something might, this is the last one. What my rant comes down to is this. Come on, Mets. After such a great run from the trade deadline through the NLCS, the Mets could not be touched. Someone seemed to come up big in every game since the great Cespedes swoop. Whether it was Cespedes himself, Daniel Murphy, Lucas Duda, Curtis Granderson, David Wright, the entire starting rotation, or Jerry's Familia, someone was always making a big-time play. Where did all of that go against the Royals when it mattered most? Sure, the Royals played unbelievably well, and hats off to them for playing with a killer instinct typical of championship teams. They refused to strike out, they put the ball in play, and forced the shaky Mets defense to make plays. And boy, was that defense shaky. I followed this team through all of its ups and downs this season, from spring training and the loss of Zach Wheeler to Tommy John, to the dark days of July, exemplified perfectly by Wilmer Flores' tears. But through it all, I have not seen such a poor defense on routine plays as I saw during the World Series. When Daniel Murphy let that dribbler squeak under his glove in Game 4 and conceded the tying run, all I could think of was Luis Castillo getting hit in the head with a pop-up in shallow right and the Yankees beating the Mets in the bottom of the 9th in the Subway Series in 2009. Just, classic Mets. Not only was the defensive error bad, but whatever mojo Murphy had from his historic NLDS and NLCS on the offensive side of the ball clearly abandoned him on the biggest stage as well. Cespedes was not seen or heard from since the NLDS as well. And don't get me started on his lack of defense in the World Series. We could be here all night if that was the case. What I liked about Cespedes in Detroit was that he always hustled and kept the Tigers in the game even when they were struggling mightily without Miguel Cabrera in June and July. He found another gear when he came to the Mets as well. But again, when it mattered most, the Mets' competitive fire that carried them to the World Series was extinguished as quickly as it ignited back in July. Of course there's always next year, but this team has some serious holes to fill, especially with both Murphy and Cespedes being free agents this winter. Their awful performances give Alderson and the Mets front office another tough question to answer. Do you let them both walk after this? Do you sign one? Both? Who knows? We'll see in April. New York Mets, you are currently and should and will be bugging for the foreseeable future. That's all we have for you tonight. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Tiger Sports Nation. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at D3TV DePaul, as well as on Facebook and Instagram. For Robert Sherman, Julia Briggs, and Tom Crispin and the rest of our crew, I'm Michael Jennings. We'll see you next week.